All right, so like I said, we're going to go through, we're going to look at masks, which are an important part of working with After Effects. We didn't go through masking, did we, with After Effects? We did, I think, on Premiere, but it's different. So I think we've just kind of done basics up to this point, basics of animation. If you don't remember what we went over in After Effects prior to spring break, review those videos when you get a chance, because I'll point things back out again, but I'm not going to spend any time on them. So, just because I kind of want to keep moving along. So, like I said, we're going to look at masks, and then rotoscoping, which is basically rotoscoping in After Effects is like it's creating an alpha channel for a video, just like you do in Photoshop, except it's a moving image, obviously, and it's more time consuming, and in some cases it's an extremely tedious process. So, but that's what it is. If it's the effect you want, you got to put the work into it to get the results. So, but before I do that, just so you know, the video that I'm working with here, I did not put up on Brightspace. However, if you go to pexels.com and search videos karate, the image that I'm using is right down here. It's on that first page. So there's some other ones here as well, but this one works fairly decently for my purposes, so that's the one I'm going to use. And I actually use this, I think I want to use this for most of the masking stuff. So, you know, we will work with that image all the way through. So if you want to go ahead and grab that, pexels.com, search videos karate. And once you do that, you can pop open After Effects and drop it in. You import a video into After Effects just like you import anything else. What's that? Doesn't have to be that exact video, but if you're going to try and follow along with me, I think it's the easiest one to work with. I've tried a few of those others, and this one has some fairly decent separations. So in general, while I'm waiting on you to get that, in general, masking in After Effects is basically it's one of two things, and it equates to Photoshop really well. A mask can either be made from a black and white image or a black and white graphic, black being transparent, white being opaque, or it can be done with paths, which will actually make a vector mask, much like Photoshop does. So there's those two methods, and then there's also rotoscoping. And rotoscoping is basically like a regular layer mask in Photoshop, except that you're tracking a moving image. So it's a raster kind of a thing, and we got to treat it as such. So you got to have a video that's big enough. So that's what rotoscoping is. We can also rotoscope an image with a path, which is, as you can imagine, a fairly tedious process. But before they had the roto brush and that kind of stuff, that was the only way you could do it, was to actually outline your object, advance frame by frame or every few frames, and move the points on your path. So I want to quickly demonstrate that, but that is, it all kind of fits together that way. So If you didn't grab it, it's that karate image on pexels.com. And just open that After Effects and place it in there. And I'm just going to create a new composition about 15 seconds long. And I'm going to leave rotoscoping till last. So I'm just going to call this first composition Masking 1, 1920 by 1080, 24 frames a second, about 15 seconds long. Should work. Say OK. And so let's start with some basic masking. If I've got, let's see, let's pick something simple. So finish composition, and I'm not going to bring that video in yet, but I want to actually add, I'm going to add a block of type, all right? So I'll grab my type tool, go down here into my composition, and type the word masking, and then just sort of resize it, or pick a typeface that will let you make it kind of nice and large. If I pick impact, it's kind of big. And I'm just going to kind of drop it roughly in the middle of my composition. So initially, I'm going to work with this type, all right? And so this is just an object. It could be any object. I just chose type. And with that object selected, if I go up here to my pen tool, select that, or I could even use a geometric object as well. Maybe I'll keep it simple for now, and we'll do it with a rectangle. So I'm just going to go grab a rectangle, come down here, and with my object selected, I'm just going to click and drag this rectangle over top. And on purpose, I'm going to start about a third of the way down and draw it. And you'll see that it masks out part of my type. Do I need to show you that again?
No, I got it. I was just surprised that it
Okay.
knew it was meant to do masking.
Yep. So I'm just going to do that, and then I just kind of want to pull this up a little bit. I want to make sure that I want to size this up so that the word masking is entirely inside of it. And if we notice, if we take a look down here at our type object, whenever I drew that rectangle over top of it, it added a section that says masks to it. So if I open up masks and take a look, here's mask 1, and it's got my mask path in it. And we can work with that. We can even animate it, for that matter. So if I grab this mask, and here where it says mask path, I'm just going to set a keyframe for that. And I'm going to move my playhead forward about 2 seconds. And with my mask path selected, I'm going to select that mask. This is why I usually put another color behind it. But I can do anything I want to with this. I'm actually just going to select this, and I'm going to drag it down so that the word goes away. So I've animated that mask, and if I play, basically it's gonna erase it from my screen. That's actually backwards from what I would normally do with it, so I'm just gonna grab these two keyframes and flip them. Eek. Pull this guy back over here. All right, so by flipping them, now I've got an empty screen, but my mask reveals whatever's underneath. And that's the first way that we can mask. One of several ways we can mask, actually. Any questions on that so far? This is a shape path. I mean, it's a vector path, so it should stay nice and sharp and clean. And I could have animated that any number of ways, any way I wanted to, really. I could have actually, maybe I'll come back here with open, and maybe I want to take it back off screen again. So if I maybe come out to 3 seconds, I'm going to grab this mask path again. And maybe, actually, I want to scale it this time rather than change the shape. Well, no. We'll do that. Grab that path. And I'm just going to grab the handlebar on the side, hold down my Option key. And I'm going to pull both sides in. So now my animation is, I open it up, and then I wipe it off screen to the middle. I can scale that. If I decide I want to use, I could do an iris blur or an iris transition by using a circle, scale it down to 0, and then scale it up to 100, or something. I mean, any shape I have, I can create a mask with. Same goes for, let's go back to here. I'm going to delete that mask. Let's just delete it. And this time I'll use the pen tool to with the object selected, I can mask out the object. And if I look at this mask down here, like I outlined it so that I've actually had the bottom half of it showing. But if you notice, under mask, there's this drop down, add, subtract, intersect, darken, lighten, those kinds of settings. And if I change from add to subtract, it actually flips the mask. Change that back to add. Gives me the bottom half. So add and subtract, working with this vector mask. And I can animate, I'll animate this one as well. If I select that, actually that's going to be about the middle. So let's make that about, if I come out to 2 seconds and set a keyframe for my mask path, I'm going to come back about a second. and that. And I always find this part to be a little picky, but if I should be able to, there we go. If I click and drag around an item or a point, I can animate these points individually. So I'll do that. I'll bring this one down, and that one down. So that kind of masks it irregularly going up. And I'm going to go the rest of the way by, let's change this, pull him up. Yeah. So in your composition window, what are these two items set as? So the two drop downs in the composition window, one of them should say probably 100%, or does it say 50%? So up on the screen here, that percentage, you could drop that down to like 50% to help you out. What's that? Okay, so you're already smaller. Okay, what about the drop down right next to it that says third on the screen? You're at half? Okay. You're on your laptop. Try doing this. Try go up to the edit window, purge all caches. And that might take a second. Yeah. If you say clear cache, mine's going to sit here and spin. Are you sure you want to? Yeah, just say okay. Yeah, where it says clear disk cache, say okay. See if that helps you at all. A little bit? We'll keep moving these points individually. So we can kind of create an irregular kind of a mask that way with the pen tool. So were you able to do that particular shape? So now that I've done that, what's kind of nice about masking this way is it's all contained within the one object. So I'm going to select this word masking and I'm going to duplicate it. So I've got two of them up there. I'm going to go to this copy, open up masks, and whatever I've got the mask set to for this, like right now mine's set to subtract, I'm going to switch to the opposite. And I'm going to open up the, actually I'll go over here to my, text properties, I want to change the color of my type to blue on this one. Do I have that right? So by using that same object with the exact same mask, but setting one to add and one to subtract, I can kind of change that color. If I need to redo anything, or okay. So this is fairly, I mean, this method of masking is fairly flexible. Takes a little more work, but the next method of masking I want to show you is a little bit simpler in concept. So, that's by using a path. So I'm going to create another composition. And this will be my masking 2. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to do that type. Make the word masking. Set it kind of right in the middle. This time, rather than doing a shape mask like I did before, I'm going to use a black and white. I'm going to use a black object. So the difference between these, the looks are similar, but the primary difference is this time, instead of having my type selected, I'm going to make sure it's deselected, and I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw, make sure your type's deselected, and I'm just going to draw a shape over top of it, and I'm just going to make that shape black. And I'm going to rename this shape layer mask. So this isn't a mask yet. The only reason the type disappeared is because I put a black square, a black rectangle over top of type on a black background. So if I actually go here and add a new solid, drop it to the back, you'll see that I've got a black rectangle laying over top of my type. I grab that, oops, lock that one down. If I grab this layer that I called a mask, you see that it's just a black rectangle sitting on top. And what I want to do is actually move this. I don't think it really matters whether it's below it or not, but I feel like it keeps things a little simpler because then I can see everything. And this time, instead of that path, I'm actually going to come over here to my toggles and switches and modes. Click that so that I've got this track mat option. And my type, I'm going to change, I'm going to create a mat from the layer that I titled mask. And so whenever I did that, mine shows entirely, but that's because here where I've got that track matte set to mask, it's got alpha matte selected. And if I click on this little square right here, click on that, it converts it. But I'm gonna go back to where it was because, let's see, is that what I want? Let's see here. It is what I want. Because what I want is for the word masking to show while that black rectangle's over top of it. And because I created a mask out of that black rectangle, now when I grab my type and I simply slide the type down, it disappears as it no longer is on top of the black rectangle. So I've got the flexibility here of either animating my type or I can animate my mask layer, do the same kind of thing if I want. I mean, no right or wrong way, as long as you get the results you want. I can either animate the mask layer or I can animate the type layer, one of the two. Whichever one you prefer. I'm going to animate the type layer this time though because, let's see, I'm going to adjust the mask so that I want to put the bottom edge of the mask right just below my type. Then grab my type, and that's where I want it to come in at. So I'm going to go out to 2 seconds, open my position, parameter on my type, set a keyframe for that, come back here to 0, and I'm just going to slide that text down. So I can animate that type on screen that way, if I like. Do I need to do anything there again? You got to ask if I do. All right. Yeah.
So this is the so when I'm trying to do the font, there's something that it won't help me out. And I want this.
You figured it out?
Yeah, because when I was trying to follow along, it wouldn't let me put the one underneath.
Oh.
I just couldn't get it to move at all, and it just wasn't like it should.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. That's okay. That kind of stuff happens all the time. It's like there's a lot of stuff to kind of juggle, you know? So, not a big deal. All right, so I've animated my type in that way. It's kind of slow, should be quicker. I can adjust that timing, obviously. So let's look at two other things of masking this type of a thing. So I'm going to pull this back just so we can kind of see clearly on screen. I'm just going to set my playhead right in the middle where this is only part way showing. But if oh, I can't do that. I forgot. Okay, so we can bring stuff in that way, so we can animate things in this way. I'll pick up the other thing in a minute. You know, animate our motion as it comes in. You know, I can easy ease. Remember that we looked at slow in, slow out. I want to easy ease this keyframe. so that it comes up kind of quick but slows into place. Sort of just pops up, eases in. And I can combine any number of other things that I want to with that. So maybe let's also, on the type layer, let's also hit T for transparency or opacity. And maybe I set my opacity at 0. And when it pops up above, I'll set that up to 100 so that when this animates in, it kind of fades in as it pops up. We just combine different things. A very common way of animating type on a screen too, by the way, combined with other effectors. It's a fairly common way of doing that. Any questions before I move on? Yeah, no? Okay. So I've masked with a path, and I've masked with a shape. This one I'll just kind of, but remember, anything black and white or even a color image, we can use to create a mask. So I could use a black and white image of fire if I wanted to. Even though it's an animated video, I can still use that as a mask. So layer another image on top of it and have it show through the flames as they kind of dance around. It's kind of a neat effect. Anything that's black and white can be used as an alpha mask. Even a color image can be used as a luma mask. But they're just the different types of image masks that you can create. All right. So let's do I'm going to create a composition, 15-second composition. It's blank. And this one this is the first one I'm going to bring that video into that we downloaded. So I brought my video guy in. And before I do the whole rotoscoping thing, I'm going to go back up here and grab a rounded or a ellipse tool. So grab the ellipse tool, come back down here and select the video. Make sure you've got it selected. And then I'm just going to draw a circle around this guy. And position it. So I created a mask out of a shape. It's a vector mask. If I sort of scrub through this, I'm going to actually add a new solid to the background here. So I can mask, if all I want, say I've got a guy that I want to be jumping and kicking around inside of the letter letter O or something like that. As a matter of fact, why don't we do that? Well, we'll do that in a minute, as I should finish off what I'm doing. So he just kind of, the video just plays inside of that mask I created. Whenever I looked at the vector masks earlier, the one thing I didn't point out to you was that if I open up the mask layer, there are some options here. So like I said, I showed you the add subtract thing. Use add by default. But I've also got mask feather. And if I feather the mask, it'll soften the edge. I can also expand the mask. So if I drag it all back down to 0, say I decide I didn't make the mask big enough, or maybe I want to zoom in or like do an iris transition to bring this guy on the screen. I can expand the mask. If I go negative, it'll make it smaller. Positive, it'll make it bigger. But the mask path never changes. So we'll go out here to 1, set my mask expansion. Come back in here to 0. And pull the expansion negative 400 and something. And again, I can easy ease in to this final position. Maybe my mask should be a little bit bigger here. Maybe I should expand it a bit. I can also combine that with a feather. Or any number of other things. But for simple shapes, that's how I mask. But using masks are common ways to bring things on and off screen. We don't, in After Effects, we don't have transitions, like fade transitions like we do in Adobe Premiere. So we've got to actually kind of create our own transitions between scenes or between graphics. So masks become important for that reason. Mask opacity. Just applies an opacity to the primary part of your mask. It's the equivalent of adjusting its transparency level. So, but we do have these options. So we can create masks with paths using primitive shapes, or with black and white images, black and white shapes, either one. Any questions so far? All right. So those forms of masking, and then we've also got rotoscoping. So I'm actually going to do this 2 different ways, and the rotoscoping part you can try to follow along. You can follow along with if you want to, or just kind of watch it. I'm going to do it two different ways though. So like I said, the Roto brush tool that we've got, which is up here on our toolbar, is sort of an AI-enabled Roto brush, and it's pretty useful. I mean, it works pretty well. The way it's worth understanding how rotoscoping was done prior to that tool, though, just because, like any tool, I mean, if you get an image that's very high contrast, or low contrast, AI solutions don't do as good a job in that case. So, knowing how to rotoscope an object manually is good. So I'm going to start by, I'm going to make another composition, same size as before, and I'm going to grab that video and drop it down into it. And I'm going to do a real rough mask on this. I'm not going to go super tight because you'll get the idea, but I also kind of want to keep it quick. I don't want to have to take forever to do this. So I'm just going to grab the pen tool, and with this video selected, zoom in on him, and just start, and I'm just going to do a real rough outline. How perfect an outline you need to do kind of depends upon what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So, like I said, I'm going to just do this pretty rough. I'm actually going to generally outline this. Real rough, no detail. And so that, mask just kind of sits there, but as he moves around, you lose the mask, right? So just like I showed you before, if we open up the layer and open up this mask, I'm going to actually keyframe the mask path. And then I'm not going to go every single frame by frame. I'm only going to do what I need to do. So if I move ahead 3 seconds, I'm just going to grab my points and adjust them. So I'm starting this off with only doing really every third frame. Or I'm starting off with every 2 seconds, but so I guess I'm starting off with every 48 frames. And the reason being, for what I've got, I want to do it in the quickest way possible, really. So I'm just kind of pulling all this out. We really don't want to have to do any more work than we need to. So that's why I'm kind of going wide like this. So as I play across now, I'm still losing him as he punches. But when I get to 2 seconds, he's totally back in the frame. So I need to so I'm just going to move my playhead and make adjustments on it. Frame by frame, not really frame by frame. I'm trying to avoid doing frame by frame. Got my mask path. Pull this way out. But even with as few points as I've got, it's a tedious process. It takes a bit of time. So imagine if I'd have outlined him, tried to match hug his body, I'd be going pretty much through pretty much every, probably have to do pretty much every frame if I was doing that, but by doing only every so many, I can kind of keep the number of frames I've actually got to adjust down. So, lose them there. And it's just, honestly, scrubbing through my video, making adjustments as I need. There. Here. And notice I'm kind of moving until his motion stops, I think. And I'm going to have to come back over and adjust this side, but you get the idea that you really just need to go through and do the tedious work if you want to get it right. What's that? There is not. Nope. That would make sense though, wouldn't it? That'd be a good one to have. Actually, Roto Brush really kind of does the rest of that. I mean, like I said, outlining point by, I've only really ever had to outline point by point one or two times in my life. And only that's, again, that was only because I had a video that was very low contrast and the AI just didn't pick it up well. So, but even at that, I mean, it was still fairly rough trying to do it. So, but you get the idea. We just kind of got to go back and make adjustments where we lose stuff. Magnet would be helpful, now that you mention it. But anyway, so the tighter you're going to it, though, the more tedious it gets, obviously. And we don't do that unless we have to. But what does make it so, I've done that. So, but let's say that we've got, so I've just kind of outlined him kind of roughly for the first portion here, and he's good up to about here. So I'm actually going to drop that video again back into my composition as a background element. So if I turn that off, the background goes away. But what if all I was doing was that I needed to run a little bit of type behind him? So, I put a copy of my video behind, and above that, let's put my word masking back in, or karate, or whatever else you want to use. And wait, maybe. And I'm going to open up the mask on that I created. So if I open that up, let's take a look at the mask feather. Oops. Opacity. We could soften that mask quite a bit so that as he kicks, and this is a better effect if I go tighter, obviously, with the figure, but masking a moving video really is just a process that tedious. And I could expand it, sort of choke it in a little bit at certain points and animate that to get it close. Again, it kind of depends upon the effect I'm going for and what I want to do. So that needs all sorts of cleanup, but you know, if we were masking this tighter, we would generally toss a little bit of feather on there to soften up the edge. And so, and actually that's kind of interesting. I kind of kept him in front of the mask, the word mask, but he moves behind it whenever I lose the track. So different effects you can do, but that would be rotoscoping or masking with a pen tool. Understanding that I would go a lot tighter to the object that I'm outlining. Soccer balls, stuff like that, super easy to do this with. Footballs, you name it. You know, because we can move multiple points in full shapes at a time. So, so that's the one method we can use if we need to. Fortunately, this guy, if I go back into my that one. Oops, this is the one actually I was using. So this guy, though, I did with the rotoscope brush. And that's much tighter to the original, you know, to the guy moving around. So the way that works is if we, I'll just start it over again. Create a new composition. And I'm only going to do about 15 seconds or so. Grab my video of this guy again, drop it down in here, and slide this along a little bit. Go back to where it was. All right. So I've got this guy in my video, and if I double click on the video clip, opens it up, and I can grab my Roto brush tool, and if I click on that, there's actually two tools here. There's Roto brush tool and there's a refine edge tool. So you start off with the Roto tool and then you refine the edges after that. So starting at the beginning of my clip, I'm going to zoom in here, and anytime I'm using the Roto brush tool, I want to do it with a full resolution video. So if I go to my view menu, down to resolution, I can set it to full. And my Roto, I'm just going to click and like draw a line down through the middle of the guy to sort of define that area. Actually, no. So if your frame rates, I didn't pay attention. Let me start this over again. Rather than doing that in the composition, in the new composition I made, I am actually going to go back to my project window. You see I got this warning down here, frame rate mismatch. The frame rate of the video that I imported was 30 frames a second, but I was working with a composition that's 24 frames. The Roto brush won't work that way, doesn't like it. So I'm actually going to select my video, right click on it. I'm going to create a new comp from the selection just to keep things simple, so that the composition will match the video in length, frame rate, and everything. So I created a composition from the video. Now I'll go back up here to my Roto brush tool and double click on the video. Now, if I kind of drag down through this, you'll see that it places a red highlight around the guy. Not all the guy, but a lot of him. And I really just need to go in then and add more to the composition. So I do that, and you see it grabs more and more of it as I go. Got sort of a translucent edge of his pants here. I'm actually going to leave that for now. Go back up through here, check this over. I'm going to try to get this little area between his head and his hand is going to be kind of rough. If I try to do that, I want to subtract that from the selection. So if I hold down the Option key, my brush turns red. And I'll just try to drag down through there. And you see it kind of messes up my selection. So I'll go back out here, grab the hand. You just got to kind of go over it. And then when you get everything to a point that you're pretty happy with, actually I am going to go ahead and grab this part too. Option key, just get rid of that. Then I'm going to go back with my here and get my Refine Edge tool and just kind of go around the edges. And the Refine Edge tool actually takes a little bit to work. I could probably actually skip that step with this guy because I managed to get all the parts I really needed. And actually I think I'm going to. I'm going to skip that. Go back to just my Roto brush. And once I've got him outlined, I can go ahead and, if I just hit the space bar on my keyboard, and it'll take a second to start resolving, but following that outline, it'll resolve through frame by frame. Sort of stick with it. And you can play through and it'll resolve, but Roto Brush tool uses a boatload of RAM to do its thing. Instead of going through the entire thing, usually you can just kind of preview through, make sure everything looks pretty good, go through and touch up individual frames, just like I did with the pen tool. The process is the same. Stop at a particular frame. Like if I come across here, somewhere in here I saw Oh, there it was. Somewhere there's a big hole created. Like right there where his hands come up. I'd go through and kind of fix those individually. But once you're done, you're not finished. Then you've got to freeze all of those masks into place. And you do that by clicking on the freeze button down here. And sit back and have a drink while you wait on it to resolve every single frame. It's good if you're going to rotoscope. I did the entire thing here. It's very good to know what portion of the video you need and how long you need, and actually create yourself a composition that matches that, and only do what you need, what's necessary. It takes, I mean, my laptop actually does a really good job with a lot of this stuff, but even here it's still really very slow. And we just got to kind of wait on it to finish. So rather than wait on it to finish, on mine, I'm going to stop it. And go back to the one that I already did before class, which is this one. And once you've frozen all of those masks, you've got the outline of the guy, and place a solid behind him or anything else you want. If we open up the layer, effects, Roto Brush and Refine Edge are just an effect. We can use motion blur. I mean, there's a bunch of different things we can kind of set here. There's a bunch of different strokes that I had in here that it used, but I'm going to just use the Roto Brush matte. If I zoom in here, let's go back to full resolution. I can actually feather the edge of that. So I can feather the edge of the matte, and I can shift it too. So if I shift it negative, it's actually going to pull the matte inside of the object. And if I go positive, it's going to send it outside of the object and see how we get more background whenever I move it way out positive. But this allows us to refine those edges a little bit. Reduce chatter. Takes away a little bit of the jitteriness, although my feathering will do that as well. So I can make adjustments to that effect. They also come up here in the effect controls panel as well. And then I'm going to turn on motion blur so that the mask will actually pick up some of the motion blur from the object, from the guy. Our mask is already made. I can drop my resolution back to a third or so if I want. And let's go back and put our type behind him. Make it nice and big, make it count. and we rotoscope the guy so that we can place other text behind him or make other adjustments that we need to. Sometimes it's color adjustments. Drop it to a quarter resolution to see if that goes any quicker. But that's what the rotoscope tool does, brush does. And how much detail you go into is kind of up to you, really. I mean, but, you know, all the things like, you know, being able to choke and spread the mask, feathering it, even just doing sort of rough outlines, based upon what you're doing, sometimes that might be enough to accomplish your objective, you know? So it's why knowing, you know, having a very clear idea of the direction that we're going in is important with some of this stuff, because it's time consuming, tedious, I mean, you name it. So, but we can do really kind of cool compositions and pretty neat effects with it the same way. So, but with the Roto tool, it's, you know, outline your first frame, sort of let it, I mean, I usually let it resolve all the way through, but it was being a little slow on me, and I didn't want to waste the time resetting my cache. So, you know, do that, and then remember though, but whenever you finish, you've got to freeze all of those masks for every single frame. And, you know, if I select this guy, there's the layer. I can always unfreeze and fix them and then do it again. So, but freezing, clicking that freeze button is important. I should have picked a ball to do, because the ball would have been a lot quicker and a lot so easier to show. But I don't know. I thought the effect with the guy was kind of nice. So project. So that's how we kind of do masks. So far we've done masks, keyframing, easing on keyframes, basic interface. You know, I've got kind of I actually didn't do everything I wanted to do, but I don't want to. We'll do trim paths and looping next class, because there's other things we need to do. But that's how we create masks. So rotoscoping with shapes and with paths. All right. Any questions before I move on? Okay.